How would one go about leaving a high control organization, for example, a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses? So I've been there. I was once a Jehovah's Witness and I did manage to leave. So I'm going to give you some ideas, some tips and some tricks on how to successfully exit any group or religion or a cult or even any organization that you find that is on your toes all the time and it's difficult to leave. Now, the biggest obstacle for leaving an organisation such as Jehovah's Witnesses is the constant threat of being completely cut off, the shunning. So a lot of people are afraid to lose their family, rightly so, and also their friends. So that is a factor that often gets people to stay and be the so-called PMO. So PMO stands for physically in, mentally out. So someone who I was once a PMO carries on going, attending meetings, pretending to still believe in it all, go knock on doors, but knowing inside that they don't believe any of it and that they would rather leave. Now, these are just some of the things that I tried that helped me and that I could recommend doing for people who are looking for ways to exit the organisation. It's not an easy thing to do because it's not easy to leave. And the reason being that it's not easy to leave is because you will always have the so-called elders on your case. People will come and try and talk to you, message you, ring you, visit you, even find you at your workplace just to get you to come back to meetings. I was there and I know people who were there as well, being constantly hounded by the so-called brothers and sisters, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses call each other, as well as the elders, and being called to different meetings. And, the elders wanted to talk to you and persuade you. And it's really quite psychological torture to go through all that. I don't have a magic recipe or a magic wand. Everyone's circumstances are different. You do have to be in a place where you are ready to lose it all to get it all, where you've come to a point where you can no longer stand being there and living a lie. However, even when you get to that point, you might have logistical issues, such as if you are still a young person who lives with their parents who are devout Jehovah's Witnesses, or you are married to a devout Jehovah's Witness and you have children together or no children, or you have family and friends like your parents or your children, and you risk to lose it all if you speak up about how you feel and also decide to leave. Now, there are exceptions. There are some families that will not cut off the family members, that will still continue interacting with their children or their parents or their brothers or their sisters, siblings. But unfortunately, those aren't that widespread because people are really bullied into shunning the disobedient family member. And that's like coercion. It's actually to coerce them to come back, and it's one of many really devious psychological tactics that Jehovah's Witnesses are taught by the governing body members on how to force people to stay in the organisation. And I would compare the organisation as a whole to a narcissistic abuse. I truly believe that all the methods that are used are coercive control, manipulation, gaslighting. You obviously have the love bombing in the beginning and the hoovering tactics. And there's the bite model on Jehovah's Witnesses, and obviously it applies to other similar organisations, not just Jehovah's Witnesses. But with me having personal experience with Jehovah's Witnesses, that is what I mainly focus on. So some of the tips and tricks that I would recommend, which I personally utilised, is you need to build a backup support system, and this support system has to be people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, and you need to kind of in secret start making friends with so-called worldly people. I did that for 2 years before leaving the organisation. So even though I wasn't close with these people, I did make sure that I associated more and more with people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses to actually get my own fears down about what people are like, because Jehovah's Witnesses are being fear-mongered about the normal world. They are constantly being taught that everything is evil, the people are evil, that this world is ruled by Satan and devil, and you kind of need to start deconstructing that and start to work on your fear of people and fear of the world, the so-called the world, how Jehovah's Witnesses describe anyone who isn't Jehovah's Witness. Another part is I would absolutely not read or study any more publications. You can pretend that you do, but I would just stop altogether. You do not need any more brainwashing or indoctrination, and continue getting involved in maybe ex-Jehovah's Witness community online. Make sure you do it safely, maybe under a false name. Clear your browsing history if you share a house with Jehovah's Witnesses, such as parents, siblings, or a spouse. Not that I encourage lying, but however, if you do seriously want to build up your resilience and your strength to go through the leaving the organisation, you do need to build yourself up emotionally, mentally, and psychologically. Then I would suggest also to start slowly fading. Now, sometimes it works fully, and some people have faded successfully to a point where they just don't go to meetings, but they're still unofficially a Jehovah's Witness. And they just basically fob everybody off, and you can't get punished for it, really. I mean, the only thing is you'll have to keep putting up with people trying to contact you and talk to you. Whereas if you disassociate yourself, then you are free from any unwanted contact and unwanted interaction with elders or Jehovah's Witnesses, which is what I did. I wanted to be free of it all. I didn't want any more phone calls. I didn't want any more texts. I didn't want any more visits and being dragged to meetings against my will and being constantly made to feel guilty or just, being shamed into things and just psychologically forced to go just to shut them up, just to stop them from being on my case. And that's not fair. That's not how it should be. We all should be able to make a free choice, whether we go somewhere or don't go somewhere, whether we're part of something. But when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you do not get those choices. That's why it is a cult, because the choice is taken away from you. There is no freedom. And if you do choose to not obey or go along, you get punished. And usually it is the nearest and dearest to you that are the tools in your punishment. Again, you need to have an outside support network. I cannot emphasize that enough, because you will end up, if you get found out as well that you no longer believe it, you will get shunned. Even if you're married, even if you live with your parents, you will suffer consequences, just how it is. So to have an outside support network, whether that's online or in person, I would say you need both. It's one of the most important steps. Fading, and also no longer allowing yourself to be brainwashed. And then if you can get yourself, if you don't have a job, get yourself a job, move out, do whatever it takes to distance yourself from the organisation and from the people in your local congregation. So those are my suggestions, what I did for myself. So I hope that helps.